floating voters are much less interested in policy, let alone ideology, than all of us. I mean, they're what political scientists call valence voters. That is, they tend to make up their mind at election time, not on policies, but on character. Is this leader competent? Is this party on my side? Will they keep their promises? Will they stand firm when the going gets tough? It's those kinds of character judgments. And that's really actually why Margaret Thatcher won 3 elections in a row. It was partly on populist policies like rights to buy, but it was because, those of you who were around 30 years ago will remember, it was, by golly, I may not agree with her, but she knows where she's heading. She knows what she stands for. In a sense, the 2 key questions, analytically or in statistical terms, are: can the Conservatives squeeze the UKIP vote, the current UKIP vote, by terrifying them with the thought that a vote for UKIP is a vote for Ed Miliband? And secondly, will the Lib Dems recover at least some of the many votes that they've lost to Labour since 2010? There will be many other questions, but my point is that I think there's going to be very little shifting over the next 2 years between Conservative and Labour.
So Thatcher, I think, the attitudes of Britain have moved on so much from the Thatcher era that the word Thatcherite isn't, I don't think, that useful for us. When it comes to liberty, I think a lot more can be done. And when it comes to attitudes, I think that Britain is, I'd actually say that the Labour years have had more impact than the lady would have liked to imagine.
If we look, I think, at the big picture of macroeconomic policy, what we see is not an ideologue, or not even a conviction politician, I think, but a Prime Minister who presided over a policy that really zigzagged all over the place. I find the notion of her being a conviction politician quite difficult, except for the fact that she's very good at presenting herself in fairly authentic terms. And I think that's what's interesting about her, and I think that Blair in some ways took politics away from that. Blair kind of brought the branding, and that's what I think people want some return to. I mean, politics in the 80s was authentic because there was Thatcher and you reacted to her in one way or another.
The key kind of inheritance I think we've taken from Thatcher's ideas there is the idea of the public sector crowding out the private sector, which was the key animating idea that she had and that Keith Joseph had and Alan Walters did as well, which was that if the man in Whitehall simply took his jackboot off the neck of the man in the private sector, somehow the private sector would be able to grow and fill the space that was left behind by the public sector being hacked back. And that's always struck me as a really odd model of how any economy works.
What I would argue is that in a post-ideological age, no conviction politician can prevail or succeed. And why do I describe our society as so post-ideological? It's because it's much more heterogeneous. Its values are far more pluralistic. It's more equal in terms of rights-based and unequal in terms of wealth and income. It's fragmented, there's very little social glue, highly individualistic, yet it's so collaborative. Politics now is a management of whatever it is. That's what politics comes down to, competently managing things. If you look at, for proof of what I'm saying, ask yourself why we have now, for the first time in the post-war period, 4 significant political parties.
I do think David Cameron modernised and carried on the finest traditions of Thatcher in the welfare reform and the school reform and a little bit to the health reform. He deserves, I think, credit for that. He wouldn't want to take. He's got the right language. She just kept fighting enemies even when there weren't any left. That's why she had to go. And it's true. I mean, she's like, come on, who's next? And it's like, nobody, Margaret. They've all gone. And, oh, come on, But David Cameron is picking up her unfinished business. But I do have a horrible feeling that we are going to have to get to an IMF-style bailout disaster before the need for radicalism is accepted by both political parties.